Good morning. Good morning, traders. How are you all doing today? Karibuni sana. Glad that a lot of you could join us this fine Friday morning, though it is a bit chilly today. Everyone is doing well. So, for those who are new, my name is Mitch Kaniel, and I'm a trader with Afriforex. I want to welcome you to another Afriforex daily analysis session. Now, you do know during these sessions, we as the Afriforex team, we analyze the market early in the morning, but try and identify what trading opportunities we'll be looking at taking for the day, and we do share that information with you. So we do have the Upworks team in the back office today. John is taking a break, but he will be there to assist whatever questions or queries you might have. So feel free to ask those questions in the chat box, and John will be able to respond to you. But I will also be looking to address those questions at the end of the session. So let's jump straight into it. So as usual, we'll start off with our watch list, what we're looking at yesterday. So let's start off here. Now, there's been a big change with our watch list. So you can see yesterday what our bias was. We were looking for selling opportunities on the Australian dollar as well as the US dollar. So our focus was on these two pairs, and we're looking to mix and match them with all the other pairs on the buy side. So you can see that's the euro, the New Zealand dollar, the British pound, Canadian dollar, the Swiss franc, as well as the Japanese yen. Now, today, you can see there's been a mass exodus from pairs on the buy side. So our focus today is going to be looking for buying opportunities on the Canadian dollar as well as the US dollar. So the US dollar did move from the sell side to the buy side. And our focus will be looking at mixing and matching them with the pairs on the sell side. So you can see that's from the Australian dollar all the way down till the Japanese yen. So before we do jump on today's pairs, we'll end up having a look at the pairs that we did have yesterday that we're not going to be looking at today. Have a look at a few screenshots that we did manage to get before we do focus on today's pairs. Now, one thing to note in terms of fundamentals, there's nothing much happening today. It seems like it could be a slow day. You can see during the Asian session, we did have some Japanese yen fundamentals, which did change our bias. And you can see during the London session, there's hardly anything coming out. We have a few speeches, which not necessarily will change our bias. And during the US session, no US dollar news. You can see it's mainly the Canadian dollar fundamentals at 330. So they might still be active, but I would not necessarily be trying to count on that, especially if you end up making some good profits throughout the week. You don't necessarily want to give them back on a Friday. However, we will see what opportunities we are able to get. So looking at the pairs that we did have yesterday that we're not going to be looking at today, we'll start off here with the euro against the Australian dollar. Now, yesterday, our bias on this currency pair was to look for buying opportunities. You can see the three areas that John had pointed out and where price was when we were discussing this market yesterday. Now, we wanted one of two things to happen. Either a pullback coming in, we were hoping to see the price pulling back within this support resistance area before we're able to look for the buy. Unfortunately, the price did manage to actually start going to the upside, and it was holding above within this particular area. And if you do take note of the time, that was during the London market open at around 11 o'clock. So there was a small buying opportunity then during the London session, but it's a similar situation. This trade only worked out during the London session because you can see at exactly 3 o'clock when the US market did open, can see that's when we did get a huge pin bar, and that was the most extreme point before the market actually started pulling back. Now, even though it's still holding above this particular area, the fact that the euro fundamentals have also switched, that's the reason why this is a pair that we're not going to be focusing on today. Now, the next pair we did have was the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. In this kind of pair, our bias here was to look for selling opportunities. Now, the sell did work, although they did end up working out quite later in the evening. You can see the three areas that John had pointed out. Now, during the London session, we did get the price actually breaking this area to the upside. And throughout the whole day, throughout the London session, as well as the US session, you can see the price was holding to the upside. You can see later on at around 8 o'clock, the price did manage to actually come down. We're hoping to see if we could end up getting a pullback coming in, which you can see it attempted to do. Unfortunately, it could not necessarily get that high up because you can clearly see we're hoping to see the price coming back within this area. We did get a small pullback, and this was during the Asian session where you can see the price has managed to continue coming down. Now, even though the trade did work out earlier today morning, this is a pair that could potentially end up giving us issues today. Might find the market just jumping into a range, just bouncing between two levels, and that's the reason why this is a pair for today we're not going to be focusing on. Now, the next pair we did have was the Australian dollar against Swiss franc. Here, our bias was to look for selling opportunities, and initially, the price did actually, or at least was within this bias, and you can see that the price did start moving to the downside. Now, we did want the pullback to come in, show us evidence that the price was actually holding below, but we did end up getting some Swiss franc fundamentals that did come in that did change that bias, because you can see this huge candle where the market just gapped to the upside, coming very aggressively to the upside right there. So at that point in time, this pair ideally would potentially end up giving us issues because you can see throughout the whole day, the market just kept on ranging. It looked like it was attempting to hold below within this particular area, and you can see that with a 3. But at 4:30 during the New York Stock Exchange, you can see that's when the price came to the upside and started holding above. And remember, we do point out the pairs that are usually on the same side most likely will end up starting to range. So since the fundamentals for the Swiss franc did change, unfortunately, this pair did fall off our watch list and did not necessarily give us much of a trading opportunity yesterday. Now, the next pair we did have was the US dollar against Canadian dollar. And now on this kind of pair, our bias here was to look for selling opportunities. You can see the 3 areas that John had pointed out. Now, I wanted to see what kind of reaction we'd get within this first blue support resistance area. Seems the market did decide to end up actually going up a bit higher, coming back towards the main sellers area. Looked as if it had broken this area to the upside. But if you do take note of the time, at 4:30, that's when the sells actually started coming in. And you can see the market coming to the downside, coming back within this bias area. Now, unfortunately, today, both the US dollar and the Canadian dollar, both of them being on the same side, unfortunately, this is a pair that we're not going to be focusing on today. Now, last but not least, the pairs that we did have yesterday that we're not going to be looking at today is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. It seems the Australian dollar did show quite a bit of weakness and towards during the Asian session, you can see at first as well as during the London session, because you can see once the price did manage to break this area to the downside, because you can see the price was within this bias area. So we're hoping to get a pullback to come in, but it seems that was not the case. The price did manage to break to the downside. We got confirmation that the price was holding below this particular area. And if you do look at the time, that was at exactly 11 o'clock during the London market open. You can see at that point in time, the price did manage to continue going down. And if you do take note of the time that the price actually started turning to the upside, you can see that was at 4:30. That's the reason why we always mention these market opening times. So that's 10, 11, 4, and 5:30. Sorry, 3 and 4:30. Apologies for that. Do watch out for those times. You will possibly find the market doing some sort of reaction or bouncing off a certain level. So do watch out for that. Which you can see the trade did work out during the London session, but later on, we can clearly see the pullback coming in. So unfortunately for us today, this is a pair that we're not going to be looking at. So before we do jump on today's pairs, let's have a look at a few screenshots that we did manage to get. So we'll start off here with Dan Bickett. It seems that yesterday we were on a roll, especially with the indices. So it seems you started off here with the Dow Jones, managing to grab a very nice selling opportunity within an area where the sellers. It seems that the market did give us some sort of probe. You managed to grab that sell and you can see the price coming in your favor. Not necessarily sure it managed to get all the way down within this particular area, but at least the fact that your stop loss is already below your entry, we do know that, Dan, you do know how to manage your trades, especially within areas where they're buyers. So you can see this is a buyer's area right there. So the buyers could have ended up reacting from there or within one of these areas before he did manage to get to your take profit. So I do end up hoping as it is approaching those problem areas, you were managing your trade. But otherwise, very, very well done on that trade, Dan Bickett. You also did manage to grab a selling opportunity on the UK 100. As I mentioned, we love trading the indices. It seems like this one, you did manage to wait for a breach and a pullback to get the selling opportunity there. You can see the price coming down in your favor, and you have already managed your trade, making it a risk-free trade. So very, very good job on this trade, Dan Bickett. So also next, we also did get, Dan, you did manage to grab the NASDAQ as well. So clearly on the indices, you were taking advantage of the correlation that does end up happening there. Did manage to grab a selling opportunity on the NASDAQ. You can see the price coming down in your favor. Similar situation, your stop loss below your entry. So very good job on that. So also next, we did get Peter. Peter, you did manage to grab a selling opportunity here on the Australian dollar against Canadian dollar. Up to you did take advantage of that Australian dollar weakness and the Canadian dollar strength that did come in. So you can see the price coming very well in your favor. Your stop loss is within a very good area because you can see these are the sellers who have been pushing down lower. So having your stop loss above there is a very good thing. So very, very well done on that trade, Peter. Keep up the great work that you're doing. So also next we get Charlotte. Charlotte, you did manage to grab a selling opportunity on gold. Now, one thing to take note, since the market hasn't yet moved, remember, we always mention buy with buyers, sell with sellers. Now, you might end up finding some issues, especially with this trade, especially if you look at the fact that this area right here is an area where the buyers pushed to the upside. So regardless of whether or not the price has come down very aggressive, the fact that we're still within that buyer's area, it could potentially end up giving you some sort of reaction. So remember, always the best thing to do within such situations is wait for a breach. And when the price pulls back, that would be a much better sell to look for. And that would end up giving you way less issues to actually end up looking for that selling opportunity. But still, very good job sending in your screenshot. Do end up hoping you try and end up getting the sales within the seller's area. Do know you have gone through our education, so you can see the fact that the price has gone down and given us probably 100% pullback. We still need to see what these buyers could do. I think if at that point in time, if they are not able to really do much, then at that point in time, you can be able to look for your selling opportunity, and at least it will be at a higher point. But still very well done on this trade, Charlotte. Keep up the good work and keep sending in your screenshots, hoping that the more you end up sending them in, the more you'll be buying with buyers and selling with sellers. But still very good job of this. So remember, guys, if you do manage to take any setups based on things that we do share, feel free to send them into us. Our contact details are in the video description below. So let's focus on today's pairs. So we'll start off with the Canadian dollar pairs, mix and match them with the pairs on the sell side before we move on to the US dollar. Then we'll look at the indices as well as gold and silver. So starting off the Canadian dollar pairs, we'll start off with the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. Now, this is a trade, Peter, you didn't manage to grab, and you can clearly see the benefit of holding, or at least keeping your stop loss within these support and resistance areas. So you can see once the price came to the downside, there was a pullback. And when the price side coming down, your focus is that seller. So your stop loss being above that area. So you can see as the price comes down, if you're following the same rule, once a seller makes a new low and you put your stop loss within such areas, even though the price attempts to come down, you can clearly see at that point in time, within such a situation, your stop loss would still be within such an area. So at least you are able to maximize. If the trade continues going down, you maximize on your trade. If it comes back up, at least you've gotten out with the most that you can be able to get on that trade. But still, we can clearly see yesterday, the market did manage to come down very well. You can see the breach to the downside, the price holding below. We do end up looking at this probe right here. That was during the London market open at 11 o'clock. And the price did manage to continue going all the way down lower. Similar situation, had a boost at around 4:30 or so during the New York Stock Exchange. And you can clearly see the price kept on going to the downside. So today, the bias here is still going to be looking for sell. But you can clearly see the fact that within a buyer's area, we need one of two things to end up happening. Either these buyers are going to end up giving us some sort of reaction. And if they do end up giving us a reaction, that means we'll end up getting a pullback. So potentially we could end up getting this price coming back within this support and resistance area, giving us some sort of probe or price action signal before we're able to look for selling opportunities. Or you could find what happened yesterday could happen today, where you could find the market actually ends up breaking this area to the downside. And remember, if we get the price holding below and it lines up within one of the market opening times, you could end up finding a very nice selling opportunity as well here on the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. Remember, both the Australian dollar is showing a lot of weakness and the Canadian dollar showing a lot of strength. And that's the reason why you can see this market has been coming down quite aggressive, not necessarily giving us any pullbacks to actually look for those selling opportunities. And that's the reason why right now we'll need to wait and see what ends up happening. Either a pullback or a breach to the downside. So hope that's clear on the Australian dollar against Canadian dollar. To move on to the next Canadian dollar pair we do have. So this is a brand new entry in our watch list. Here we have the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. You can see that correlation that happened with the Swiss franc pairs, where they did end up boosting up quite aggressively once the interest rates news did end up coming out. So today, the bias is to look for buying opportunities. You can clearly see where we are at. So within an area where the sellers, the breach right there is not the most convincing. However, we'll wait to see what happens when the markets do end up opening. So if you find the prices are still holding above this particular area and it lines up within the market opening time, so we're probably at 11, you could end up finding the market actually taking off at that point in time. However, you could have easily find this market due to the fact that you can see the way the breach has happened. It's not necessarily very convincing. Don't be surprised if you find the price coming back in, holding below. And if you do see that, we will be looking to see if we can end up getting our buying opportunities a bit lower down within this support and resistance area. We can end up getting the price giving us this pullback within this location, and it lines up within the market opening time. We could end up finding a nice buying opportunity. But right now, let's wait to see whether or not we'll actually get the price actually holding to the upside. So hope the game plan is clear on the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So looking at the next Canadian dollar pair, right here we have the British pound against Canadian dollar. We can see yesterday, based on the amount of strength the Canadian dollar is showing, was this price is coming down. This means that the Canadian dollar is definitely showing some strength. So the fact that right now you realize, and we're seeing some same correlation coming in with all these Canadian dollar pairs, we are within extreme areas. So the fact that we're looking for sells, we're within an area where the buyers. Similar situation on the Canadian dollar against Swiss franc, since it's inverted, the fact that we're looking for a buy and we're within an area where the sellers, it's not necessarily the best thing. So we wait to see what ends up happening with this Canadian dollar pairs. It seems that there could be some sort of correlation coming in. So one of two things can happen. Could end up finding the price coming back in, giving us a pullback. And if you do see that happening on one of the pairs, chances are you could find that happening on the rest of them as well. However, it's a similar situation if the price is able to go to the downside and you see it holding below and it's within the market opening time. So in this situation at around 11 o'clock, there is potential for a very nice selling opportunity as well for us within this support and resistance area. But remember, we need confirmation that this particular buyer's area has been reached to the downside before we're able to look for those selling opportunities. So we'll wait to see what ends happening on the British pound against the Canadian dollar as we move on to the next Canadian dollar pair we do have. So right here, brand new entry on our watch list. And here we have the euro against the Canadian dollar. We are seeing some correlation coming in with these Canadian dollar pairs where all of them are within these extreme areas. So we'll wait for one of two things. Remember, we never like to chase the market, especially if you're starting to jump in on a selling opportunity here. Where are you actually going to put your stop loss? Chances are, if you do end up, let's say, for example, grabbing a selling opportunity here, if you start putting your stop loss here, don't be surprised that the price can easily end up coming to the upside, especially holding above, and you find it actually inciting people to start looking for buying opportunities because all those people, all those late sellers, they end up getting stopped out once the price goes to the upside. And once it does that, let's say it ends up looking as if the price is within there, most people will now stop thinking it's a sell and start jumping in on the buys. And at that point in time, we do end up seeing it lining up within the market opening time, we could end up getting a nice selling opportunity. But remember, based on the way we've seen the other Canadian dollar pairs, they do look as if there's potential that the price could actually break and hold below these certain areas. And remember, if they line up within the market opening time, so watch out for 11 to see. So remember, 10 and 11 actually, 10 o'clock being the Frankfurt market open, because sometimes the market do end up moving at that time, but most of the time they do end up moving at 11 o'clock. So watch out for both of those times, 10 and 11. You see the price holding below, we end up either getting some sort of probe or price action signal confirming this price has actually breached this area to the downside, then we should be able to find some very nice selling opportunities here on the euro against the Canadian dollar. So hope the game plan is clear, at least on what we're looking at doing on the euro against Canadian dollar. So let's move on to the next Canadian dollar pair we do have, which is the New Zealand dollar against the Canadian dollar. You can see brand new entry on our watch list here, and our bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. Now, we have identified three areas where the sells could potentially end up working out from. So we have a support and resistance area right here at the top. I will go to the 1 hour time frame so you can be able to see a lot more detail of what exactly is happening within this area. So let me quickly go to the 1 hour time frame. You'll be able to see the fact that this market has been going to the upside, as you can see. The fact that we did end up looking as if we're holding above this major support and resistance area, as you can see the kind of reaction that we did manage to get breaking this area to the upside. But the fact that it's broken that location up, so apologies. The fact that it's broken this area to the downside, you can see we have not necessarily gotten a pullback towards that area. So don't be surprised that the price might even still be able to pull back within this support and resistance area, because most of the time, support and resistance areas levels are tested again, especially once it's broken. You do end up finding a test to confirm that that level is actually broken. We could easily find the price actually pulling back towards that main support and resistance area before we're able to look for selling opportunities. But you can see at the moment, the first level we need to focus on is the market, or at least the level where we're at right now. You can see it's definitely a major support and resistance area with all these probes right here. And the fact that when price breaches and holds above, you can clearly see the push to the upside. So right now, the fact that we've broken this area to the downside, even though the price could come back all the way to the extreme area that we're looking at, the first location will be within this first support and resistance area. So we'll see what kind of reaction comes in within this location here. We do see the price holding below that area, then we should be able to find a very nice selling opportunity. However, if the price breaches and holds above, so you find when the price comes back and it actually goes to the upside, then chances are we could be waiting for our selling opportunities from higher up within this red support and resistance area. So moving on to the next and last Canadian dollar pair we do have. So right here we have the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, today, our bias here is going to be looking for buying opportunities on this pair. So we have identified 3 areas of interest where the buys could potentially end up working out from. You can see right now, we do seem as if we're breaking this support and resistance pair, holding to the upside. And right now, we're approaching this seller's pair above this particular location. So for now, we'll wait to see one of two things. Since we cannot look for any buying opportunities within this area, we need either one, a pullback to come in. So when we end up getting the price coming back within a buyer's area, that could end up giving us a very nice entry criteria, especially if it lines up within the market opening time. But if you find the price continuing to go to the upside, don't necessarily look for your buying opportunities or don't start thinking that you've been left. Remember, wait for a breach, then wait for the pullback to confirm that this level has actually been broken for you to end up looking for your buying opportunity. Because remember, the fact that we're within an area where the sellers, you can clearly see here, that's definitely a level we need to watch out for. So especially when you go up higher to a larger time frame, I think it's the 4-hour time frame or so, there's potential that this market, since it has been coming down for quite a while, you can see the slowdown or at least the change of structure. And this is usually what we call the rollover phase, where you find that the market has been coming down very nicely, trending to the downside. But in order for a trending market to change, it ends up first moving into some sort of channel before it ends up moving into the range. Then you will start seeing the market giving you your higher highs, higher lows. So that's exactly what we're seeing. You can see it broke that support and resistance area, but still came back to it and the kind of reaction that we are getting. So that's the reason why for now, there's nothing much for us to do, especially us being in the middle here. You can see this red support and resistance, or at least the yellow area that we have, is a very major seller's area. And that's the reason why if we are able to get the price reaching and holding above, you can see the price has not been able to do that for quite a while, but if you're able to do that, then chances are we really could be going to the upside, not necessarily trying to target all the way at the top. You can see, just focus on areas where sellers have reacted from before. And if they react from there before, they could react from there again. And this could be your problem areas for your buying opportunities. But for right now, let's wait to see if we are able to get the price at least reaching this area to the upside. And if we are able to see that happening, then we should be able to continue going with our buying opportunities here on the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So hope the game plan is clear. Note we're looking at the Canadian dollar against the yen. As you can see, we've mixed and matched all the yen pairs. All the Canadian dollar pairs with the pairs on the sell side. So right now we're going to move on to the US dollar pairs and do the exact same thing. Now, yesterday we did have it for a sell, but the sells really did not come in one bit. It just ended up showing us a lot of strength throughout the whole day. So first of all, we'll start off here with the Australian dollar against Canadian dollar. This is a brand new entry on our watch list, and our bias here is going to be looking for selling opportunities. You can see the price has been coming down quite aggressive, and we are starting to get a pullback. Now, the main thing to note, remember, if you want to end up looking for yourself, most people, yes, they will realize that this market is giving us a pullback where you can see the price coming to the upside. But the problem is a number of people end up being incited by such a push to the downside, not necessarily realizing that this is not the big seller that we are looking at. Remember the fact that we always mention we want big boy sellers. If you compare how the sellers came down here, how they came down here, it was very strong, right? But now compare how they're coming down within this particular area. I don't think those are these same big, strong sellers that did manage to come to the downside, meaning this price right here might not be good enough for it, meaning we need a better price than this. And that's the reason why we will be waiting to see if we can end up getting the price coming up a bit higher within this particular area, inciting more people to look for buying opportunities. And once we do see aggressive sellers coming in, not weak sellers the way they're coming in here, but want to see aggressive sellers, then at that point in time, we should be able to look for some selling opportunities there. And you can be able to see the same thing happen earlier within this particular area where you can see the way the buyers were coming up. You can see the struggle of the buyers, and now look at that aggressive sell. That gives you a good sign that the big boy sellers are potentially there, but you also need to confirm that these buyers who managed to push to the upside, what are they going to do? And you can clearly see, look at how much they're struggling. They're clearly much weaker than how they came up the first time. And at that point in time, it's no surprise that the sells did manage to continue. So that's the thing we'll be waiting for right now. These sellers are not the sellers that are actually going to take the price down low, but this is just mainly going to incite all those people to look for selling opportunities. Because remember, most people end up being late in the market. especially if you compare how the market was coming up. So for example, if you see that price going to the upside and you see a pullback, even if you look for a buy, all those buyers who are buying within this area, all their stop losses are below this particular area right there. So all those people getting stopped out, they start jumping in on sells just to end up getting stopped out again. So remember, don't chase the market, be more proactive, or at least try and anticipate what is going to happen rather than reacting to what's actually happening. So in this situation, we wait to see. Hopefully, we can end up getting this pullback coming in before we're able to look for those selling opportunities here on the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So the next US dollar pair we do have is the US dollar against Swiss franc. So this pair, we did have it yesterday, and our bias yesterday was to look for selling opportunities. So you can see the three areas that John had pointed out to look for the sells. And initially, the price was within this particular bias area. So we wanted to see whether or not we could end up getting the price actually coming to the downside or giving us some sort of small pullback within the support and resistance area for us to look for selling opportunities. But you can see the Swiss franc fundamentals that did come in that brought in a lot of weakness on the Swiss franc, where you can see the price really did continue going to the upside, came all the way to the extreme. But you can see once we reached and held above this area at that point in time, this trade did fall off our watch list due to the fact that the price continued going to the upside. So today, the bias here is still, or at least today, the bias has changed, and we will be looking for buying opportunities on this kind of pair. You can clearly see right now we're within an area where the sellers, so definitely not a good place to look for your buying opportunities. So we need one of two things to happen. We need one of two things to happen. Either the price actually ends up giving us some sort of pullback. You can see we might be in some sort of range, so potentially we can end up getting the price coming back in before we're able to look for buying opportunities. And the reason why, one thing you'll take note of is, yes, we had the level within this particular area yesterday, but due to the fact that the price managed to go to the upside, make a particular high, we got a pullback, and the buyers look as if they're attempting to break this area to the upside. Especially if you look at how the buyers are coming in, they're not necessarily the most convincing. So what you might find that if we are not able to get the price breaking and holding above for us to look for a buying opportunity, it possibly means that this price right here is not good enough. So all those buyers definitely have their stop losses below that blue level. And that's the reason why we will not be surprised if we can get the price coming back within this support and resistance area, inciting more people to look for selling opportunities before we're able to look for those buying opportunities here on the US dollar against the Swiss franc. Right now, we'll wait to see what ends up happening. But the fact that within an area where the sellers, there's nothing much for us to do right now. We need to wait for that pullback to come in or a breach to the upside. So moving on to the next US dollar pair we did have, right here is the British pound against the US dollar. And yesterday, our bias here was to look for buying opportunities. Unfortunately, that did not work out. You can see where the price was initially when we were discussing this price early in the morning. Wanted to see how far the pullback was going to come in. So wanted to see how the reaction was within this first support and resistance area, but the price just broke that area to the downside, held below. So at that point in time, we knew this was not the buy that we would be relying on. The price came back down lower, but once the price came down, we did not necessarily see the price coming back in. It attempted earlier on, you can see when the price came up quite aggressively, attempting to go to the upside, but the fact that the price never held to the upside, you can see it was just approved and it came back down. Ideally, this really was off our watch list. Even though later on at around 4:30, it attempted to come up based on the fact that the US dollar had switched our fundamentals as well as the British pound. Ideally, this pair did end up giving us a lot of issues and it fall off our watch list. But the good thing about today is that it is still on our watch list. However, we are going to be looking for selling opportunities on this pair today. So right now, we can see we are within an area where the buyers, where we do seem to be attempting to breach this area to the downside. So especially if I go up to a higher time frame, even though you could end up starting to jump in on sales, you can see we have some sort of problem area right here. Since this market has been coming up for quite a bit, there's potential that we might need a bit more of a pullback. But we can see how much the buyer has really struggled to go to the upside, especially in situations like this where you find that as the price was going up, look at the way the sellers were reacting. That just showed that the buyers were still in control, especially if you compare how long it took to come down in comparison to how the buyers took to go up. So it's no surprise that the price managed to go to the upside. But once you start seeing the buyers coming in, but the sellers coming in aggressive, the buyers attempting and the sellers coming in even more aggressive, you definitely know that these buyers are clearly either not interested or the sellers really want to get rid of this. So in this situation, we wait to see what ends up happening. Our bias is still going to be looking for selling opportunities, but us bouncing off this buyer's area, we'll need to wait for one of two things. Either a pullback coming in, it's either going to end up holding below this area, but I think it would be better waiting for a breach and hold below the blue SNR before we're able to look for a sell, because you can see, and if you grab a selling opportunity there, the next problem area is so close, so you might end up wanting to wait for that level to be breached. But you could easily find the price actually coming in a bit higher, especially if it holds to the upside. Then we should be waiting to see if we can end up getting the price pulling back within this support and resistance area for us to look for our potential selling opportunities here on the British pound against the US dollar. So wait to see what ends up happening here. We move on to the next US dollar pair we do have. So right here, we have the euro against the US dollar. Now, yesterday, our bias was to look for buying opportunities. You can see the three areas that John had pointed out, but the US dollar pairs really did fall off the watch list quite quickly. As you can see, based on that, the price did look as if it was holding below this area. You can see, based on John's illustration, wanted to see the price actually coming back in and holding above. If we did see that, there could have been this potential buying opportunity available for us. But that's the reason why we always mention these levels. And if the price breaks certain levels, it does fall off our watch list, because the probability of that trade working out really goes down. So today, you can see the price, once it did break this area to the downside and continue holding below, it did end up falling off our watch list. But the benefit is today, we still have the euro against the US dollar, but today we will be looking for selling opportunities, since both the fundamentals did switch, looking for selling opportunities on the euro and buying opportunities on the US dollar. So here, the fact that we're within an area where the buyers, clearly, this is not a good place for us to look for our selling opportunities. So let's either wait for one of two things, potentially a pullback coming back within this support and resistance area for us to look for selling opportunities, or we could easily get the price actually breaking this area to the downside and holding below. And if we do see that, we should be able to look for sells. But I would be looking more likely, at least I think more likely, for this market to actually end up giving us more of a pullback. So it's a similar situation. So just move this level right here. Yes, the market ended up giving us a pullback, and these sellers have attempted to come down lower. But the fact that we have not been able to make a new low, even after a pullback that ended up coming in, possibly means this price right here is not good enough for the sellers to actually continue selling. They need a better price for them to sell. And that's why you might end up finding the price coming up a bit higher than this. Definitely, when you do see that, it's incited very many people to start looking for buying opportunities, because most people will think the market structure has changed. But for us, we do know that this will be a pullback. We'll be interested to see what kind of reaction we do end up getting within this support and resistance area. So hope the game plan is clear on what we're looking at doing on the euro against the US dollar. As we move on to the next US dollar pair, right here we have the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. Similar situation with the euro against the US dollar. We did have it yesterday, but it really did fall off our watch list immediately as we were discussing this market. Because you can see the three areas that were pointed out, our reliance was within this particular buyer's area, because we did see those are the buyers who are running to the upside. Unfortunately, once the price came down, wanted to see a pullback coming in for us price to actually hold to the upside, but that did not happen. The price continued going to the downside. So unfortunately, this pair really did fall off our watch list. But the benefit is today, the fundamentals have switched for both of them. So we'll be looking for selling opportunities on this kind of pair. We'll be focusing on these three areas of interest to look for ourselves. So right now, definitely getting a pullback, which is what we want. And you can see, based on the other pair that I'd actually shown, you can see the fact that the price has actually started giving us a pullback. This right here, when the price is coming down, definitely incited very many people to start looking for selling opportunities, thinking that the market is now changing, not necessarily realizing that that is just still a pullback, and you need to compare how the buyers and sellers do actually come in. So looking at these sellers, that clearly does not look as if how these strong sellers were coming to the downside. So for right now, we clearly know that that's not it. Chances are we'll still be getting a pullback coming in. So we'll wait to see what happens. If we can end up getting the price coming back within this area, giving us some sort of global price action signal for us to look for selling opportunities, it definitely needs to incite a few more people to look for those buying opportunities. And our main objective is, as the price approaches one of these highlighted areas, or even this blue support and resistance area where you could find the price approaching that, if you do see the sellers reacting aggressively and it lines up within the market opening time, that should give you a good clue that that is the level that the markets are reacting from, and you can potentially look for some trading opportunities from those areas. So Wait to see what ends up happening on the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar as we move on to our next and last time pair we do have. So right here, we have the US dollar against the Japanese yen. And now yesterday, our bias here was to actually look for selling opportunities, but today it is to look for buys. So you can see the three areas that John had pointed out. We needed either a breach to the downside or a pullback coming in. It seems that the pullback was coming in. Wanted to see what kind of reaction we'd get within this support and resistance area. Well, you can see the market did end up attempting to come down, or sorry, come to the upside, approach that seller's area, but the seller, you can clearly see no big boy reaction. You can compare. Remember, always try and compare. Look at the buyer. Buyer managed to push all the way up towards that area. But how long did it take for the sellers to even come down towards that location? You can see very, very weak, and they were not even really able to get towards that area before the price did manage to continue going to the upside. So those are the clues that you should be able to see if the market is going to potentially react within one of those locations. So today, the bias is going to be looking for buying opportunities, and our levels are pretty much the same. You can see the levels still being respected. Once this price was broken to the upside, it held above before continuing. So today, we wait to see what ends up happening in terms of the buys. Right now, the fact that we're within an area where the sellers definitely not a good place to look for your buying opportunities just yet. Let's wait and see what kind of reaction comes in. Hopefully, we can end up getting this price coming back within this support and resistance area for us to look for buying opportunities. Watch out for this small SNR as well. Don't be surprised if the price could end up bouncing off that location, especially if you compare how the buyers have come in. Right now, we want to see the sellers coming in weak. So if they do end up coming in weak, similar to what they did yesterday, then we could easily find the market actually breaking this area to the upside. And at that point in time, if we do see the price holding above, we should be able to look for buying opportunities there. But do watch out for this particular high right there at the top, especially if you end up going up to a higher time frame. Think of it, the 1 hour time frame. You can see overall, we are at least bouncing off within a buyer's area. We could be potentially continuing to go to the upside. Even though we break this area, do watch out for this area right here at the top. You can clearly see that's exactly where sellers did react from. But if we're able to get the price breaching and holding above that blue SNR, then I think at that point in time, we should be good to go to continue with our buying opportunities here on the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So hope that's clear on all the currency pairs. As you can see, we've mixed and matched the Canadian dollar and the US dollar with the pairs on the sell side. So right now we're going to move on to the indices, then have a look at gold and silver. So we'll start off here with the NASDAQ, the NAS 100. Now, yesterday, our bias here was to look for selling opportunities. So the areas that we did have, and let's end up zooming out slightly. You can see they are quite large based on this particular location. Now, the main thing that we were hoping to see yesterday was a selling opportunity coming in. And you can see where the price was initially when John was discussing this market. Now, the price did end up coming down quite aggressive during the London market open at 11 o'clock. Very aggressive sellers. You can clearly see it just came back within this particular buyer's area, struggled to come down before at around 4:30. The price did end up shooting back up, coming back within the seller's area. So this one does look quite choppy based on the fact that it is playing around within these areas. But one thing you could end up taking note of is this big move. I know it looks quite confusing, but that could just end up being a probe. You could easily say that the market did manage to break this area to the downside, and this level has actually been broken because you can see the price tried to go back up, but it never held above. In fact, it's actually still holding to the downside. I think that's the reason why for us today, we'll still be focusing on the same areas that we did have yesterday. Still looking for selling opportunities based on these three locations. So aggressive sellers area right there at the top. So as long as we're holding below this main sellers area, we'll still be looking for selling opportunities. Right now, we're within an area where the sellers could end up reacting from. So we'll wait to see what ends up happening. Hopefully, we can end up getting some other probe and price action signal for us to look for selling opportunities there. But if you do want to be a bit more careful on this pair, you can see this is the area where buyers have pushed up multiple times. But the good thing is the fact that these buyers, let me just move this. The good thing is the fact that look at the way they reacted within this particular area. So the first time, very strong buyers. Second time, quite strong buyers as well. But right now, as they've come in, they do not necessarily look as strong. So hopefully, if you do want to end up being safer, or at least more conservative on this trade, could end up either waiting to see the market giving us some sort of global price action signal to look for selling opportunity. If you do grab yourself there, make sure you do some sort of management within this buyer's area. But if you do want to be more safer on this trade, you can end up waiting for a breach of this particular level. If you see the price holding below, then we should be able to look for selling opportunities then on the on the NAS 100. So wait to see what ends up happening on this pair. Because this one, especially if we go up to a higher time frame, the 1 hour time frame, you can be able to see this is the main seller who did manage to push the market down lower. You can see this seller pushed it down and we managed to get this low. We're back within that support and resistance there. And you can see it is still holding. How many times the market has actually probed this particular area? It's just confirming that that level has held. Maybe needed a better price. But remember the whole aspect to keep on pointing. Once the price ends up coming to the downside, we're usually meant to get one pullback before it attempts to continue going down lower. But in this situation, the fact that we could not get a new low, we needed a better price than this. And you can see the price has managed to come up, getting this better price, the reactions that are coming in, and you can see what kind of reactions the sellers are starting to give. So in this situation, we will still be looking for sells overall since we are overall within a seller's zone. But if you want to be safe, you can end up waiting for a breach of the blue SNR. I think at that point in time, you would be safe to be able to look for your selling opportunity there. So hope that is clear on the on the NAS 100 as we move on to the US 30 or the Dow Jones. Now, similar correlation as you can clearly see on these pairs. Although yesterday our bias here on the Dow was to look for buying opportunities. Now the price did look as if it had broken this area to the upside and seemed to be holding. So wanted to see whether or not we could end up getting a global price action signal within this area. You can see based on John's illustration, but the price really did come down very aggressive, came back towards the buyer's area. You can see once it bounced off this location, 430, you can see the price managing to go to the upside. But the reason is, or at least today, the levels will pretty much remain the same. Main reason is this market, as it moved to the upside, this was just a huge probe, especially when we end up going up to a higher time frame, which we'll do just now. We'll end up looking a lot clearer due to the fact that the market did manage to, or at least attempted to break this area to the upside. But look at this main seller's area right here. You can see how many times it has held in terms of the pullback, how many times it's actually gone towards that area. Even this push to the upside. Remember the reason why John said we wanted to see the price holding above, because it will have confirmed that this major seller's area would have been breached. But you can see the way the market reacted coming to the downside. Wanted to see another breach to the upside, but you can clearly see that was just a probe. The price came to the upside, came back down, and is holding below that area. So today, bias is still going to be looking for buying opportunities. Remember, as long as we're holding above the red SNR, our bias here is going to be looking for buys. So we'll still be looking for buying opportunities here. So we need one of two things. Either this pullback is going to come back in within the support and resistance area for us to look for buying opportunities. But what's most likely to happen, especially the way the sellers are reacting, not necessarily as strong. Hopefully, we can end up getting this price breaching and holding to the upside. I think if we do end up seeing that, then we should be able to continue looking for buying opportunities here. But for right now, since we're so close to the seller's area, let's see what kind of reaction we will end up getting, either a pullback or a breach to the upside to confirm whether or not we're going to continue buying the Dow Jones. So hope the game plan is clear on what we're looking at doing on the indices. As we move on to the next pair we do have, which is silver. Now, yesterday on silver, our bias was to look for buying opportunities, and you can see the areas that John had pointed out. But remember, as we always point out, within the indices as well as the metals, we are purely technical, meaning if the price breaks and holds below the red support and resistance area, unlike the currency pairs, it doesn't fall off our watch list. These pairs will always be on our watch list. It's just that now our bias in terms of the direction will change. So the fact that we're holding above this area right here, can end up putting a level here. The fact that we're holding above that area, as long as we're holding above that, we were meant to look for buying opportunities. But once the price managed to come to the downside and was holding below, at that point in time, our bias did switch, and we should have been able to start looking for selling opportunities. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today, because you can see once it did reach the downside, we did get a pullback. And remember, compare how the sellers came down, very aggressive, and compare how the buyers came to the upside. Those are the kind of pullbacks we want to see. So in that situation, you can see the price did confirm coming back within that support and resistance area and did end up reacting during the Asian session. So today, the bias is going to be looking for selling opportunities. You do note where we are. We're within an area where the buyers, so clearly no selling opportunity just yet. So we need one of two things to happen. Either this market is actually going to continue going to the downside, because you can see the way the price has actually come back in, could be approved, but also at the same time, if you do see the price coming back in and holding below, then we should be able to look for selling opportunities there. But since we're within an area where there are buyers, don't be surprised we could end up getting a pullback coming in back within the support and resistance area where the main sellers are for us to look for selling opportunities. Now, whether or not it comes back in here or even back within the red SNR, we will still be looking for selling opportunities. The only time our buyers will switch and we will start looking for buying opportunities here is if the price is able to break and hold above the red SNR. If we do end up seeing that, then it should be good to go to look for buying opportunities. But right now, let's wait for a pullback to come in or a breach of this buyer's area for us to confirm whether or not we're going to continue looking for selling opportunities here on silver. So hope that is clear as we move on to the next and last currency pair that we do have, which is gold. So gold being a fan favorite, yesterday our bias was to look for buying opportunities. It is still the same situation today. Remember, we are purely technical. You can clearly see the price didn't manage to end up giving us a pullback. Wanted to see what reaction we'd get within this location at 11 o'clock. The buyers did not necessarily react that much before the price managed to come all the way back down. You can see it managed to come back down, although this was around 1 o'clock before there was a push to the upside. Came back within the seller's area, and you can see there was another pullback to the downside. So even though the price attempted to go up during the US session, the fact that the price has come back down, we are still going to be looking for buys, remember, as long as we're holding above the red support and resistance area. Now, the price has actually given us a very nice probe. It's not necessarily the most convincing. And when I say it's not necessarily the most convincing is look at how the market has come down, which is a good thing. We did end up getting a probe, which I'm very happy to see. Right now, let's wait to see what kind of reaction. If the price ends up holding above this area, then we should be able to look for buying opportunities here. But if you do want to be safe, because this market, the way it has been looking, there's potential that it could actually start following silver and actually break to the downside. But we need to end up only doing that once this market is able to break to the downside. And if it falls below, that's when we will be able to look for selling opportunity. But for right now, since we're still holding above this particular area, let's hope to see if we can end up getting this price breaching and holding to the upside for us to look for potential buying opportunities. Make sure you manage your trade within this fast problem area. And similar situation, if you get the price breaching and holding above this SNR, we should be able to look for buying opportunities there. Now, if this buy right now would be a bit too risky for you to actually take, you can end up waiting for a bit more confirmation. You can see these sellers right here. These are the sellers who are actually pushing this market to the downside. So you could end up waiting for a breach to the upside and they pull back. If the price actually holds above, there could be a potential buying opportunity available for us as well here on gold. But we do need to be careful, especially when we do end up going up to a higher time frame. It's not necessarily the best the way the market is reacting. I think most will be able to identify how this market is, or at least those who have done our one-on-one or at least our education and gone through any of our courses will know the reason why this one might look as if it could potentially break to the downside. But we've seen this happen many times in gold. As long as we're holding above the red SNR, we will be looking for buys. We've seen many times in the past where it looks as if it's coming to the downside and it still continues going up because the zone is still within a buyer zone. So it's a similar situation. I think these were the trade, Charlotte, you didn't manage to get, where remember, we did point out that you did look for your selling opportunity within an area where the buyers reacted from before. And you can see, even though we were within an area and the sellers came down very aggressive, there was still some sort of reaction. But the good thing is, especially if you compare how the buyers came in. So within that same area right there, look at the push of the buyer. Very strong, big green candles. Similar situation now. The next time, look at how the buyers are coming up. Those very small green candles and then the reaction of the seller. That's the reason why, even though within a buyer's area, we could end up finding the buying opportunity. But remember, if we get the price breaking and holding below this area, then chances are we could be looking for some selling opportunities coming in. So hope that is clear on the game plan that we're looking at on gold, as well as see all the currency pairs that we do have. So let me see if there are any questions on the chat box I can be able to address. So I'm seeing, Lyle, you're saying transitory inflation fears is what caused the indices to sell yesterday. Yes, potentially. But you know, now, even the way the market is right now, especially dealing with the indices,
is the fact that Trump being in office, he really does a lot of things that are very unpredictable. So the market is trying to adapt to how he is, or at least his statements and things that he does in the government, because there's so many things that he's doing right now. I think I read recently, was it yesterday, that he's trying to demolish the Ministry of Education. There are so many things that are not necessarily going to be of benefit in the long run. So it all depends. So it could be the transitory inflation fears that what could have caused the indices to come down, but also at the same time, we wait to see what ends up happening. Remember, for us, especially, yes, you can end up looking at the news, but especially with the indices and stuff, we are very much technical. A lot of the times we follow the market structure in terms of if we're within a buyer zone or a seller zone, we end up following that. And that's the reason why we always mention if we get a price breaking a certain level, then we will be going towards the downside. Because it's a similar situation like gold. I think most people would have assumed that gold is going to reach 3,000 and then go down. But it's managed to end up getting all the way to 3,054. So are there people looking to sell? If they are, yes, they can. But the fact that we're still within a buyer zone, it is very risky. And we have seen that many times where the market really looks as if it's coming to the downside. So if I can go up to the 4-hour time, especially situations like this, you can see the price has been coming up. But here on the 4-hour, there's situations where the price looks as if it was coming down lower. So most people at that point in time will start thinking that it's a sell, not necessarily realizing this right here is the buyer who managed to push the price up here. And these are concepts that we do teach within our courses. We know as long as we're holding above the blue SNR, we will be looking for buying opportunities. And you can see the price did manage to continue playing around, giving us pullback. The fact that it wasn't able to make a new high, this is the concept that I keep on mentioning about getting a better price. You can see we managed to get the price going up. We attempted to go up, we couldn't. We attempted to go up again, we could not, meaning we needed a better price than this. And that's no surprise that the price managed to come down, came back towards the buyer's area. So as long as we're holding above this area, we will be looking for buying opportunities. And you can see we've got a very nice probe, and the price managed to continue going up within that same level. So that's the reason why we're purely technical here. Meaning if we can get the price breaching and holding below the red SNR, that's when we look for sales. But as long as we're holding above, the probability of it going up really, really does go up. So it's the same thing that we end up using on the indices as well. So it could end up having some sort of reaction, but I know there's a concept that we do end up, or at least have had, buy the rumor, sell the news. So you'll find that many people will say, yes, this is going to get to this. You'll hear rumors about it, but that's not necessarily the case, right? You'll find that, yes, it might end up going there, but most people trying to buy to getting it to a certain point, or you find that since inflation fears, it could cause a sell-off. You start selling, but realizing that the buys are still working. So that's the reason why you do need to also be careful about that. But as long as you're joining us here, I think you should be good to go live. But thank you so much for your comment as well, and keep them coming in. So I'm also seeing Charlotte, you're saying thank you. Karibu sana, Charlotte. Also happy to see a screenshot. So keep them in, keep sending them in. And remember the whole aspect that we keep on pointing out: buy with buyers, sell with sellers. I know why you were looking for the selling opportunity, but you do need to end up waiting for a bit more of a test to confirm that those levels are actually not reacting for you to look for those selling opportunities. So not seeing any more questions, which is okay. We do need to end up jumping onto the charts. Remember, there's 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock where we could end up finding some movements. This will be our watch list for today. And in terms of fundamentals, not much is happening today. A bunch of speeches, or at least a number of speeches for the Euro pairs, are coming out during the London session, but that's it. And during the US session, we only have these Canadian dollar fundamentals at 4:30. I know many of you are seeing, why am I only saying the Canadian dollars at 4:30? You're seeing all these other ones. All these other ones are not really going to end up changing the bias. You'll always find on Fridays, these bigger huge oil rig counts. You will also find all of those within there, these speculative net positions. So they don't necessarily have an effect on our bias. So that's the reason why today it's mainly going to be the Canadian dollar that we're going to be waiting on. And the fact that we have Canadian dollar as our main focus, let's see what happens there. Maybe during the London session, we could find a pullback. Then during the US session, possibly during that news event, you could find the markets moving, or vice versa, where you find during the London session, they're actually moving in the direction we want, showing us buys. But you could find that at 3:30, do make sure you're managing your trade. You could find some weakness maybe coming in at that time. So just ideally just be patient, or at least be prepared for either situation to come in. So that's it from me and from us. I hope I've provided you guys with as much value as possible. I am trying to give you guys as much. Remember, keep sending in the questions. We will end up trying to see how we can address them as well during the end of these sessions. Try and actually end up having more of a conversation with you guys. So once again, thank you guys so much. Hope you have a great weekend. Don't forget to send in your screenshots. And if you do want more education, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are in the chat box, or you can go to our website, www.afriforex.com, and you can be able to get more details from there. Once again, thank you guys so much. Have a great day and a great weekend. Happy trading, and bye for now. Cheers.